6.5 minutes past 10 o'clock, and I can't believe the coincidence that this happens, Rob, how often we play a song and then magically we find the person on the end of the phone who was the singer. Matt Taylor, thanks for joining us on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Oh, no worries.
You've got Neil here. The other voice you've already spoken to is Rob. I guess the obvious question is, do you remember when you were young?
Oh, God, yeah. Probably I remember when I was young a hell of a lot better than I remember 4 days ago.
Last week we interviewed Kevin Johnson, he of Rock and Roll, I Gave You All the Best Years of My Life, and we asked him, did he remember when he bought his first guitar? So the great thing about having song titles like that is we can go straight in with the first question.
Yeah.
And he could, you'd be pleased to know.
I bought an electric guitar and didn't even realise you needed an amplifier. That's how wonderfully equipped I was.
Matt, we've talked to a lot of people from your era and your ilk and the various answers to the following question, but what was your very first memories of wanting to be a musician or a singer or a combination of both?
I never thought... I used to ride my bike and I'd be the radio on my bike and I'd make up songs. And when the Beatles and that hit, I'd make, just to entertain my friends, I'd make up rude words for the Beatles songs. And but it never really, it was just something, because my parents... were show people. They always had to work, but they'd do these little shows, mainly for the Americans and everything during the war. And so it was around me all the time, and I was the least musical in the family. And then really, I think, when the Beatles hit, it just lit up a light bulb in my head. You can't explain it.
Now, I did do a tiny little bit of research and found out that your heritage is from Liverpool. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the research I've done.
Manchester. From my mum's side, it's Manchester, and from my dad's side, it's Liverpool.
Oh, so there's no musical heritage at all in either of those two towns?
No, Matt, seriously, was the Liverpool thing a bit of a connection, or was it just pure the music that hit you right between the eyes?
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually came home from school and Dad said, have a look at this. These are a couple of blokes from the old country. Not early 63, probably.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of these long-haired blokes. And I said, well, you didn't use the word gay in those days, but look at that. They've got long hair. Oh, because everyone had really short hair in, say, 1963. And within 24 hours, I started to grow my hair long.
How was that received by a traditionalist from Liverpool?
Very well.
Oh, okay, good.
Very well. But that just, the Beatles were an amazing catalyst that just really had a generation that was going nowhere, and it said, hey, guys, look what we can do. Mm. And you thought, oh, yeah, that looks fantastic. Let's do it.
Because I was talking to somebody, and we've had so many people like you on the show, we've been very blessed with that, who said that the first 3 years of the 1960s were, in fact, all part of the 1950s, that the 1960s started in the first week of December 1963 when the Beatles said, I want to hold your hand into the market.
Yeah, well, I'm even earlier than that. Mm. I went to school that day after my dad showed that in the paper, and a guy I used to go to primary school with, this is at high school, he comes up and he says, Matt, he cut it out. Did you see this in the paper? And I said, yeah. And he said, look, during the lunch hour, we'll go down to the cafe where you're not allowed to go in school uniforms because they've got a jukebox.
Ooh, dangerous.
Of course, it made no difference to us. We went straight down to I think we had 6 bob between us, and you could play about 4 tunes in the jukebox. And I think I saw her standing there. What was the other one?
Like Me Do would have been one of the early ones.
And 2 others. And that's when we looked at each other and said, let's grow our hair long. And that was 24 hours. You know, that's 24 hours that completely and utterly changed my life.
I've spoken to a number of folks, and we have one in the studio here today, who you say the words Taylor Swift, and they think she's had a massive influence on the world, which clearly she has. But I find hard to explain to people of that age group just what a phenomenon. I mean, I was 1 in 1963, so I don't have a clear memory of it. But the stuff I've done since, just looking at footage of what they did when they came to Melbourne, for example, and Adelaide basically shut down for a day, it must have been just amazing.
It was. Well, to be quite honest, when the Beatles came to Australia, I did go to the show, but I was a Rolling Stones fan by that stage.
Oh, okay.
Boy, I moved quick.
Well, I had the good fortune to interview Johnny Chester, who, of course, was on the stage with the Beatles. And he said there's something disconcerting about getting out to do a 10-minute presentation, and all you can hear is, "We want the Beatles, we want the Beatles."
Don't worry, it's happened to us all. Tell the story of doing the festival hall and doing, I remember when I was young, Brisbane to Beachworth, and doing all these wonderful songs, and I had 5,000 kids singing along with me. The next year, I had to support the Skyhooks, and that happened. Oh, get off! Last year.
It happens here too. People say, "Get off! We want Tommy Christensen," who follows us at 11. So I know what you're going through.
Hey, Matt, you dabbled with songwriting in a funny, cheeky kind of way. Was that a big help when you got serious? When you needed to make a quid out of it?
Oh yeah. I had a fairly natural talent for songwriting because I don't know, I suppose I could still do it today, but like say when I went to America, I could get up and play with a blues band in America, play for half an hour, and no one in that audience would know that you only met each other 5 minutes ago.
Mm. It's a bit like jazz in that respect, isn't it? That it's an opportunity to come together and effectively improv.
Well, remember, jazz was called blues a long time before it was called jazz. So, and country and Western music was called blues a long time before it was country and Western. And if you don't believe me, look up the history. You know, Jimmy Rogers was never called a country singer. He was called a blues singer.
Mm. So you've changed a bit from, what the song we just heard, there's not a lot of Beatles recognition in there. Did your going from these different genres over the journey, has your musical tastes and interests changed?
Not really. I still love old blues songs, and I still love to, if I'm somewhere, I don't play much music because my head's just been full of it forever. If I'm working on something, I won't have music in the background. It'll just take my, take my mind away from what I'm doing. But I think it all works out in the end.
So you mentioned that you moved your affection from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones certainly had a more bluesy feel to them, didn't they?
Oh, God, yeah. Well, they turned me on to the blues.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a funny little story that my sister was one of the original rock and rollers, and she'd take me to all the Lee Gordon shows.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'd seen all the rock and rollers by probably the time I was 12. And then, say 60 to 63, music was at its lowest ebb I can ever remember. You know, the night has 1,000. It was horrendous.
There's an exclusive. Matt Taylor doing The Night Has 1,000 Eyes. We're going to keep that.
That'll be a little play on Jingo. Now, Matt, the other thing that we're chatting to people around is how you come together to create the bands, how sometimes you meet each other accidentally, and sometimes you go and search for the right person to fill the role. How did Chain become Chain?
Well, the best thing to explain this is how I come into contact with Phil Manning. And when the Bay City Union, which was Australia's first real blues band, we didn't do any English covers or anything. We just went straight to the source. So the old Bay City Union played our last gig. It was with Tony Worsley at the Scene in Brisbane. And Tony had this blonde-headed guitarist, and he was really quite good. And so 6 months later, we're down in Melbourne, and our guitarist has left, and there's a knock on the Bay City Union's door. Glenn Wheatley, the rhythm guitarist, answers the door. Comes back in about 30 seconds and says, Matt, remember that blonde-headed guy who was playing with Tony Worsley? He's just joined us. And I said, yeah, he was fantastic. He'll fit in perfectly. So that's how quickly myself and Phil started working together. And, over 50 years later, we still are.
It's fascinating too, I reckon, if you... I had a mate who was involved in the music industry, a guy called Gavin Carroll, bass player, and he used to try and work this concept out of building the Australian musical family tree. And straight off the bat, you're now related to Jimmy Keys because of the Glenn Wheatley connection.
Oh, we're all connected.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, when you think about it?
The lot of us, it was, it was just so intricate.
Mm.
And, guys were just going from Chain to Billy Thorpe and back the other way for the whole time.
Which has worked out really well for us, because when we talk to people like you, they go, tell you who else you should talk to. Yeah. So we're sort of being passed around the family tree, which is really nice.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, can't talk to Lobby and Billy anymore. But, I still have an enormous affection for those two.
So you started your musical career in Brisbane, is that right?
Yeah.
Not the sort of the city that I guess a lot of Victorians, we tend to think about the people who grew up in Melbourne and the people who came across from Adelaide, because there's one or two of those. Did you sort of work your way down through Sydney? Was that the route that most Queenslanders had to take to get to the Big Smoke?
I'll tell you this lovely story. The Bay City Union, we're going down south. We're eventually going to get to Melbourne. So we go down south and we play a couple of gigs in Sydney, and by the end of it, we've got no money, so we're sleeping on Bondi Beach, and the police come and get us and said, "Where are you blokes from?" "Oh, we're from Brisbane." He says, "There's no road to Brisbane now. Fuck off." Straight to Melbourne. And Melbourne really, to me, is the centre of Australian music and always will be. It was so good to me. And, we were a blues band, and, we were playing with all the pop bands and, we were, treated really quite well. and respected. It was a fantastic era.
So what were some of the venues you were playing in Melbourne in those days?
Well, Sebastian's had always been there, but the top one when I arrived in 66, late 66, was the Thumping Tum. We'd heard all about it.
Yep.
The Thumping Tum, and
that was in Fitzroy, wasn't it?
No, it could have been. Yeah, I've got no idea of geography.
I've got a funny feeling the good folks of Spectrum ended up at the Thumping Tum for a while.
Oh yeah, they would have. And every Thursday they used to put a free meal on to get people to go there, and that was part of our eating habit.
Okay.
Probably 3 months, yeah. Wherever there was a free meal, the old Bay City Union would turn up.
3 feet, I'm there.
Matt, this common story amongst your ilk was a time where financially things were pretty tough. You may have been getting ripped off by promoters, but you keep chipping away. How tough was it to make ends meet but still follow your dream?
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, I watch a lot of those sort of talenty type shows. I don't know what they call them, I nearly throw up. I can't watch them. And I think, you can't start at the top and work your way down. You start at the bottom and work your way up.
Yep.
And you learn all the little idiosyncrasies and all the, you at my age now, I have forgotten more than, anyone who's just starting will probably ever know. It's but that was the way to do it, and enjoy. It was tough, but we were bluesmen. Oh God, I was a confident little bugger I was. And I was more confident then than what I am now. And I know 1,000 times more than that little. Yeah. But that's it. The more you know, the more you know, the less rigid things become.
So the spark that got us to have a chat to you is that you are coming to the beautiful city of Geelong very soon, along with Phil and also the guys from Stars and the guys from the Bushwhackers. For starters, I can't quite get my head around that as a combination. Some nice, gentle late 70s pop to you guys on blues, and then the Bushwhackers playing folk and bush stuff. How did that come about?
Well, John Sinclair, he just had this idea and put it to Chain, and he's the promoter. I suppose he thought that, you'd be surprised that you just have to look at someone's record collection to just see how different their musical tastes are. Apart if you look at mine, it's pretty obvious what my tastes are.
Yeah.
But, your average punter who doesn't do it for a living, he, may love, some 50s stuff and some, the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, and then, in the 80s they, go to, one of those sort of haircut type of bands, and, it's eclectic, I think they call it.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's really hard to say, but it's a really good word, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great word. And I think that's pretty much what John thought. We'll have to find out in the eating of the pudding, really.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be a fantastic show. Oh, God, some of the players that are in Stars now are, top-notch musicians.
Yeah, we had a good chat to Mick Pearling 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they'll give Shane a damn good push.
So what's the format on the night? Who plays first, and do you go to play together at any stage?
Yeah, we're talking about that now. Yeah, there's quite a bit of talk going on, and it hasn't been resolved. But Shane will certainly go on last, and we just have to decide what song to play. Now, basically, I think we should just play a sort of a rock and roll-y kind of song at the end, you know, just to use all the fantastic musicians that are there. And we may be able to, and I was thinking, this one I, you know, haven't even put to them yet. We could start off with a sort of a folky thing, and then move into rock and roll as the sort of encore, so that you know, everyone gets a little bit of you know, the music they're known for.
Yeah. Matt, there was pretty obvious that to put on a show like this requires a lot of energy and a lot of focus on being fit and healthy. How is your body holding up? Because I guess you've been in an industry where it's constantly under some sort of pressure.
It is amazing. At the moment, I'm sitting here and I've got a kidney stone.
Ouch.
And, I'm only a week out, but I've done it before. I've actually done gigs with a kidney stone. You know, we're old troopers.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, you've been doing it as long as you guys have. There's going to be times where you've worked through it, don't you?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
And we're in a lucky position where you only have to be 100%, say, for an hour or 2 hours.
Yep.
Where, you know, most people have to be, you know, that all day. And, you know, sometimes you do a gig and you just do it flat out, and then the next day you wake up and go, oh, my God, what did I do?
Yeah, I do that when I go to the office sometimes, so I can only imagine. We need to let you go, but before we do, let's just give the tour a bit of a plug. It's called the Heritage Legends. It features Chain, Stars and the Bushwhackers. I'm told by Dave Lang, your promoter, that the Warrnambool show has been cancelled. So the weekend of the 24th, 25th and 26th of May, which is 2 weeks from now, it's Healesville, Narre Warren and the Athenaeum in Melbourne. Then on Thursday the 30th, you're in Bendigo. Friday, May 31, you're here in Geelong at the Costa Hall. Saturday, June the 1st at Warragul, at the West Gippsland Arts Centre, and back to the Frankston Arts Centre in Frankston on Sunday, the 2nd of June. If you want to know more about this, folks, go to facebook.com/Sinclair Artists. facebook.com/Sinclair.artist, or jump onto the internets. Rob's trying to work out what that is, but just look for Chain, Bushwhackers and Stars, and I'm sure it will pop up.
Well, you know, it's a good thing to try, and you know, like people on the web page are always saying, "Oh, Matt, come to, you know, northern Queensland, come to northern New South Wales," and now we are, you know, coming to all of these places in Victoria, and this probably will be the last chance to really see most of those bands.
Well, folks, don't let it get past without going and seeing Friday the 31st of May in this part of the world, but also scattered around Victoria as well. Matt Taylor, thank you so much for taking some time out of your Saturday morning. I know it's a bit earlier for you than it is for us because you're in Adelaide at the moment, but thanks for taking part in the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and my love to all those people in Geelong. Great blues scene in Geelong. You had a blues people there for as long as I can remember.
Well, this time next Saturday, we're talking to a young fella called Stefan Hauk, who's a blues player. He's going to be at Pistol Pete's in Little Mallup Street. We'll talk to him next week. So, yep, blues up and about in Geelong, I can tell you.
Fantastic.
Thanks, mate. All the best.
Okay, thank you.
Good on you,
See you
Matt.
later.
Bye-bye.